taking care of us. There's empathy there. There's all sorts of wonderful things. If you can't have that, you can get a fish. Seriously, some being, a plant, some living being that we're responsible for and that relies on us, and to some extent that we rely on as well, is so crucial. We have huge amounts of neural real estate devoted to this, humans especially. You know, most of the brain is designed for visual processing, for movement. And then you start to look at, okay, like what's kind of the third element? Well, it's language and social connection. So find someone that you can exchange a morning text with on a consistent basis, ideally every day.
Has this come naturally to you? Because you don't strike me as an individual that this comes naturally to. I'm not also.
Okay, you mean
So,
I'm a bit of a loner? Is that the sense?
I'm a loner. Mm-hmm. I would be perfectly okay. And there was a year of my life where I feel like I didn't interact with anyone when I was building my first business in a small room in a rough area of the UK. But I'm someone who, if left to my own devices, probably wouldn't interact with anybody. But you strike me as the same. I have my dog as well, but
yeah, a bit. I don't have a dog right now. I'm getting another one soon. I must say I can spend long periods of time alone, but I crave social connection, and more so as I get older. You know, I think most of the challenges in my life have been around trying to resolve the need to get work done that I'm really passionate about, and let's just call it what it is, the isolation required for that, the discipline, the organization that's required for that, and the desire to be socially connected. Now, I've been very fortunate to have a lot of really close friends, and I'm in communication with them on a regular basis. And I've been closer to some than others. There's some that I'm really close with. I talk to all the time, every day. I'm close with my sister. I talk to my parents a fair amount, you know, more than some, less than others, depends on the family structure. And a few friends are just absolutely central to my life and well-being. I think when you have a romantic partner that you live with or that you're in communication with, then it becomes more frequent. But even there, you know, I think it's important to still maintain healthy friendships. And of course, people differ on this spectrum. I don't think you need a lot of friends. I think you need one really reliable, good friend or more, depending on, you know, what your needs are. And I think that as I've gotten older, I realized that, you know, the best things in life, success in particular, but also hard times, are best shared with other people. And the best way to make friends really is twofold. You know, a friend of mine once said this. He said, you know, people with interests are interesting. So if you're interested in things, you know, going and interacting with those things, even if they're within books, et cetera, have interests, genuine interests. Don't just learn things for learning's sake, but just have interests. And then the other is that if you are not the sort of person for whom like friendships are just pouring over you and people want your time, then be of service. You know, this notion of be the person who sends the good morning text. Now, if somebody never reciprocates, well then, okay, maybe you look elsewhere and send your energy elsewhere. But be the person who checks up on somebody, on a family member or friend on a regular basis. Be the person of service, and you can volunteer, you can help people in any number of ways. I mean, the great thing about a dog or just taking walks is that you'll find if you do it continually in the same neighborhood over and over, you start to run into the same people and it becomes a hello. Maybe they become a friend. Maybe it's just the familiarity. Maybe it's the barista that you say hello to each morning. You know, these things are really what I think we evolved. In fact, I know we evolved to do, and they trigger activation of these circuits that are so fundamental to our sense of well-being and safety. It largely has to do with our ability to predict the future. I mean, right now we're in a political landscape and just a world landscape that's so uncertain and so divisive. You know, just having some things that are just good, let's just call it what it is, goodness, just good-natured humans being good-natured, you know, being kind to one another, and not in any kind of manipulative way, just really being kind to one another. And then upon that, one can layer, you know, a couple extra hours of work where you're highly motivated, then getting back out, take your lunch outside, and maybe you don't see anybody. You know, people who are isolated probably have to do more work to interact with other people, but there are ways to do this. And, you know, for people that struggle with addictions like the pornography addictions or alcohol, drug addictions, and other like behavioral addictions, I mean, there are zero-cost programs essentially in every city around the world that people can access some of the social connection and support for those that, again, are completely zero cost. For people that are interested in exercise. There's usually like running groups. There's usually a threshold one has to get over. I'm not one to join a running group or work out with
neither
other
am
people.
I.
This is not my kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I do require, I've found, I need healthy social connection.
When did you figure that out? Because there was an age where I can tell exactly when I figured it out. So I know there must be one for you where you kind of figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a big pack of boys at the end of my street growing up. We all played together. Then skateboarding in that world, I was just really surrounded by people all the time. When I got serious about school and research, there were a lot of days and nights I was alone. And at that time, I'd listen to books or I'd listen to music. I still had friends, but I was less social. And I think it wasn't really until my mid-30s that I started to realize, like, whoa, like, okay, even though, I had a girlfriend, I was lonely, and I was starting to accumulate some unhealthy patterns of behavior where I was just seeking connection in unhealthy ways. And as I've built up my friendship group, and that also, of course, requires being a good friend. And I suppose there are a few people out there that probably say that I'm an unreliable friend, but I think if you were to poll my 10 or 15 closest friends, they'll tell you I'm the guy that checks in. Now, I've probably upset a few people because I don't check in on everybody, but it's true. I've got a list. I actually have a list. It's not in this notebook, of about 10 or 15 people. It's a list of 30 people total, that those are my core people. And I make it a point. It's not because I'm regimented or protocoling any of this. I make it a point to check in on that person. I haven't called that person in a little while. But then there's that core group of people that I make sure to check in with every day, at least every week. And that, like, without whom, like, I don't really want to live. It's not that I want to die, but life's just so much better with those people in my life.
But how does someone make that list, that 15 names you have?
It's all feel. It's the people that I accept and that accept me. My patterns of communication are a little weird. It's gotten me into trouble in life, for sure. I'll be, a good friend of mine once said, that I'm like the little orbiting flying robot in Star Wars. I'm like there, and then I'm gone. And people that know me, and by the way, he's a very close friend, know that I'm gone, but I'm back. And so I tend to give things my full attention. I'm like 10 out of 10 attention. And then I need my space to reset. And that hasn't always been healthy, but I've done my best to try and get better at it over time. And people that make that list are either the same way. A few of them are definitely the same way, where I'm like, hey, I haven't heard from them in a while. But then when I sit down with them or we have a phone call, it's like they're really there. In fact, some of these people will say, let's talk tomorrow, and it never happens. And I know they're not flaky. I know that they're doing other things. And then when they're ready and we get on a call, man, it's the richest interaction I've ever had. It's so deep and so rich. I'm like, I get so much out of a 10-minute conversation. It's like, yes, or an hour-long conversation. And then there are friends that I'll hang out with for a week. I'll go visit, go for a hike with. But it's the richness of the interaction that matters for me.
Not the frequency.
Not the frequency. That's right. And then for me, I think people who consider me a good friend are people who understand the intensity that I bring to things and, the love and care that I really have for them, and that if they need me, I'm there. Like, I will tell you, I've hit some hard times, some recently, and it was amazing. I had people descending on my home to be with me. I'll tear up if I talk about it. Some of them are names people are familiar with in the podcast space. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've not had that, I will get emotional. They came to my home and they sat with me, and they picked me up and they reminded me who I am. And, I've just such immense gratitude for that. I'm a 49-year-old man. I've done some things correctly. I've done some things I regret. I've strived to be the best person I could be at the time, doing the best I had with what I had. And they know that. And I know they know that, not just because they told me, but like you can feel it. And I've been blessed enough, not just to know these people, but also that when they've been in need, that I've had the opportunity to go to them, and I had to do that several times recently, things that had nothing to do with me. Sometimes people will outright ask for help. Sometimes they'll say they're in danger. Sometimes you just sense it. And it's like, that's it. I'm driving, getting in the car. And And I've learned the best thing, the way you build that kind of friendship and network is by showing up when that hard stuff isn't happening and you try and give your full attention. And sometimes that requires putting away the phone. And sometimes it means you're both on your phones and you're just hanging out and you're watching a game. Or, it doesn't mean being like forcing yourself to be somebody you're not, but it means paying attention and, and giving a significant portion of ourselves to try and really like be there for people. Because ultimately, I think that's what we want in social interactions. We want listening, we want shared experience, we want all that stuff. And that stuff's great. But ultimately, it's like when you ask who makes the list, it's like, I'm thinking of these people now. It's like, I feel like they're always with me, and I wouldn't trade any amount of money, any amount of anything for that. And I think that like a really good life includes some of that. So, forgive me for being emotional, or don't. It doesn't really matter to me. I just feel like that's the real stuff that makes life really worth living. And it has nothing to do, with dopamine, or maybe it does, or it doesn't matter what the mechanisms are. What matters is that we all have that capacity. And it starts by just showing up on a regular basis, showing somebody that you can care about them enough to think about them each morning and send them a quick good morning text. That's it. And if they don't reply, okay. And if they do, okay. And once the reciprocation starts and you start to feel kind of crewed up just a little bit, you're like, oh, wow, like there's something I can rely on in this crazy, dizzying, sometimes exhausting, really hard life. And then when the good stuff happens, you got that many more people to celebrate with and that much more intensely. So, yeah, appreciate you letting me share that. It's something that at this stage of life, I'm like, okay, like I know a few things. There's a lot I still have to learn, but that one's for sure. Yeah, friendship it's vital.